Hey guys, SuperHorrorBro Mike here, and in today's video we put our way through hostile greens while avoiding a killer mascot as we try to explain the secret story of Gone Golfing, as well as taking a look at each and every one of its different endings along the way. So what exactly is Gone Golfing? Well, it's basically a golf game merged with hide-and-seek horror mechanics. We play an overworked employee who visits Cozy Cove Mini Golf to get in some much needed rest and relaxation after a particularly troublesome day in the office. The problem is, he soon finds himself switching between the alternate dimension of a murderous mascot known as Mr. Golfy and stalked every step of the way. Things continue to get weirder and weirder until eventually we complete our scorecard and manage to escape the park and its many dangers. Now, on a surface level, the experience seems to consist of a load of meaningless nonsense, wrapped up in a very unique and challenging horror game package. However, there is more to Gone Golfing than humanoid trout and screaming trash cans, so sit back, relax, and watch on to find out why. Before diving into today's theory video, let's take a look at each of the different endings unlockable depending on your actions while playing the game. Let's start with something uplifting, the game's good ending. This is one of the easiest to unlock, especially on a first playthrough. All you need to do is complete all 13 holes found in Cozy Cove with any score above 33 and then exit the park. Doing so will reveal the following ending message. You did it! Against all odds, you survived and finished all 13 holes. As you leave the Cozy Cove parking lot, you get the feeling that there is more to the story than psychotic mascots and mutated trouts with legs, but for now, you're glad to be alive. Next up, we have the sad ending. Now, this particular ending is one of the hardest to unlock and requires both patience and cunning, and the help of a useful video tutorial can't hurt either, right? To unlock the sad ending, we must reach the final area of Gone Golfing, the last time we find ourselves on the course and spawn in this room. At this point, the entire golf course will be open to explore, and explore we must. After leaving the spawn room, head left and you'll reach some restrooms. You'll note the sign featuring a fish and smiley face on the building. Head into the building and then the leftmost cubicle to see a coin atop the toilet. Collect this coin and return to the front gate, where you'll find a wishing well to drop it into. In return, you'll receive a lever which unlocks this building between hole number 7 and 8. Inside this new room are many barrels of toxic waste, and above them another control panel also missing a lever. To activate it, we need another lever and therefore a second coin. The missing coin can be located if we backtrack via the route seen on screen now. Head underneath the windmill and over to this picnic table. You'll find the coin lying in plain sight. Once again, head back to the well and exchange the coin for the lever. Then carefully sneak your way back to the toxic waste shack and use the lever on the control panel. You'll now hear a door unlock. Head back to the table you collected coin number 2 from and take a left. At the far end of the path, you'll notice another small building to the right. Head inside and through the portal to experience the sad ending. We see Mr. Golfy looking up at a portrait of a withered golf ball and crying. He resides in a room full of rotting flesh, a stained mattress, and glaring eyeballs on every wall. Approaching Mr. Golfy causes the following cutscene to play out. You made the grave mistake of entering this place. Mr. Golfy, who has never had any friends, saw the entrance as a sign of friendship. With no chance of escape, you accept his friendship. You are now best friends forever. Now we have unlocked the sad ending, a brand new mode will appear at the main menu. This mode is called Escape Mode and finds the player waking up inside Mr. Golfy's torturous house, a place where he keeps his victims under lock and key until he is done with them. In order to escape this nightmare, we must locate a selection of randomly generated key items. First track down a six-eyed trout and place it here in the golden picture frame beneath the staircase. This will unlock a hidden doorway leading down to the basement. Here we find a giant man-eating trout which blocks our path to a lever on the other side. We must pick up this severed leg and head back upstairs where we can dip it in a puddle of toxic waste. Feeding this tainted limb to the fish poisons it and allows us to cross the waterway and collect lever number 1. Use this lever in the mechanism beside the door at the foot of the staircase. We still need one more lever to escape though. To unlock the second lever, we must track down a valve handle and then use it in the room to the right of the statue at the top of the staircase. The valve will open a compartment revealing the lever, and using this downstairs unlocks the escape ending.
I've got something for you.
You have shown that you're not only a competent mini golfer, but also a master of escape. As you run, you can finally leave this nightmare behind. Thank you for playing. You may think that would be it for Gone Golfing and its many endings. However, for pro players out there, one final outcome does remain. All you need to do is play the golf portion of the game really well, finishing with a combined score of below 32. So make sure you practice those holes in one. After handing in our impressive scorecard, do not leave the park. You will instead hear a door unlock. Backtrack to hole number 2 and we find the door to this ticket office has now unlocked. Entering the portal within this building takes us to a very different end sequence. We see a man sitting at his computer playing video games. Check it out.
Ugh, get out of my room, Mom! Can't you see I'm streaming? Mom?
It was all a game. The puzzles, the crazy guy in a golf suit, the two-legged trout, it was all for entertainment. You should be angry, but none of this is real, so why should you care? Accept this bitter end and move on. So it appears the entire story Gone Golfing set out to tell us was that of a game within a game. However, when we look at the Christmas-themed DLC and examine the finer details of the original release, it becomes abundantly clear that the story of Mr. Golfy and Cozy Cove does indeed have a deeper meaning. So without further ado, let's dive into a quick theory which explains exactly what this strange story is all about. In order to make sense of Gone Golfing, we must look at it in a slightly unconventional way and accept that all is not what it seems. The easiest way to start piecing this jigsaw puzzle of a plot together is to read the notes found throughout the game. These notes tell us key information required to formulate this theory. Firstly, employees confirmed the park mascot, who we know as Mr. Golfy, was none other than the son of the owner of the Cozy Cove golf course. They state that he never shows up on time, smells really bad, and creeps out other members of staff. Secondly, we see several notes from both the boss and employees berating a worker called Greg. Greg was a janitor, responsible for the welfare and upkeep of park conditions. However, he was negligent of his duties, leaving soda cans all over the park and forgetting to put down wet floor signs after mopping, and this led to a lawsuit when someone slipped and injured themselves. So, who was Greg? Well, in the Christmas-themed DLC, we find a note. The line, "I'm Mr. Golfy" is repeated over and over, but slips up midway through and begins to form the sentence, "I am Greg." So it seems the son's owner was both the park mascot Mr. Golfy and the janitor Greg. After failing his duties as a janitor, Greg's father forced him to take on the mascot role as he felt it was harder to screw that up, perhaps even as a form of punishment and humiliation. This brings us to point number 3. Greg's father was a cruel and uncaring man. The more notes we read from the boss of Cozy Cove, the more we understand just how little regard this guy had for his employees. They were not paid for any overtime worked, they were not allowed to listen to music on the radio, and work conditions were dingy and miserable. Everybody at the park was made to feel as if they were not valued in any way. Meanwhile, Greg's father sat in his office counting out his money. His trophy wall is decorated in taxidermied fish. By reading this note, we can see that the boss of Cozy Cove had a prize-winning trout with 12 eyes. This is framed at the centre of his trophy wall. He forbid anybody from leaving until it was put up. It seems he valued this prize-winning fish above everybody else, including his own son Greg. Imagine a father valuing a dead fish over his own son. That's got to lead to some serious psychological damage. With these points illustrated, we can now form a theory to at least explain Greg's motive for turning into a bloodthirsty killer. He was a socially awkward man who was mocked by his fellow employees and berated, humiliated, and devalued by his own father. A lifetime of this treatment led to extreme paranoia and psychosis. When Greg was made to spend his workdays inside the Mr. Golfy suit, his mind finally snapped into dual personalities. While inside the suit, he was no longer Greg, but rather a dark and twisted killer known as Mr. Golfy, taking revenge on those who made him feel worthless before.
Come here, I've got something for you.
Now we have explained the character of Mr. Golfy, let us talk about the symbolism in the game and explain the larger story as a whole. The easiest way to explain things is to drop a major bombshell from the get-go. Gone Golfing states at the beginning of the game that we are playing as an employee who just finished a terrible day at work and heads for the golf course at Cozy Cove to play some holes and relax. At face value, it seems we are playing another hapless victim of Mr. Golfy, and in a way that's true. However, the person we are in control of is not just any man, but rather Greg himself. We are controlling Greg's good side as his alter ego Mr. Golfy seeks to wipe us out, taking over Greg's mind completely. The entire game is a fight to regain control of our mind from the darkness consuming it. The more we analyse events, the more this theory holds water. For starters, while the golf course seems fine and dandy at the start of the game, the further we play, the more twisted and surreal it becomes, as if a bad dream. We must also remember that Greg suffered greatly during work, and so this character that had a bad day at work would fit his profile. While in this version of the park, we enter through portals which lead to the dark recesses of Greg's mind, and coincidentally, these portals release Mr. Golfy himself. Each time we enter one of these portals, we are venturing deeper into Greg's subconscious and learning more about his inner turmoil. In the first portal, we learn about how he and other employees were mistreated by his father, the owner of Cozy Cove. We also learn of his father's pride and joy, the 12-eyed trout. Then, in the second portal, we see many symbols of a mind in disarray. Remember how Greg got the company in trouble after forgetting to put down wet floor signs after mopping? Well, all over the place we see these signs haunting him. We also see eyeballs everywhere staring at us. This represents the extreme paranoia and anxiety Greg felt as a result of his father and fellow co-workers. Next, you'll notice the golf course itself is larger than life, reflecting how intimidating the place was for poor Greg. And finally, we see giant octopus tentacles everywhere. This is harder to explain, but a logical conclusion to make here would be to tie these to Greg's father. As a fisherman, it seems Greg's father may have been a seafaring type. These tentacles would then simply reflect the extreme hold Greg's father had over his son's mental state. Next up, we have multiple choice doorways. Entering through the wrong portal leads to a maze-like environment, which reflects the chaos and confusion Greg feels within. However, if we take the correct door, we go deeper once more, confronting Greg's inner demons. We find ourselves trapped in a giant body of water, with a man-eating version of the six-eyed trout. A note here tells us that Greg's job was to feed the fish every day. It seems one day he snapped and fed it toxic waste, sick of his father valuing a fish over his own kin. This poison killed the fish after first mutating it, and at this point it was framed and displayed as a trophy. Despite Greg's attempt to rid himself of the fish which overshadowed him in his father's eyes, nothing changed. It was stuffed and put in a place of pride, immortalized forever. This again makes sense, as once we return to the golf course, not only is Greg's alter ego stalking him, but also the haunting vision of the trout he killed. This time walking around just like a human, a fish brother his father was far more proud of. There is also evidence of other symbolism representing events that occurred in this timeline. For example, when playing the Christmas-themed DLC, Merry Golfmas, we discover an underground area which seems to contain elements of Greg's childhood, spliced with the terrible things he would grow up to act out as an adult. A mini golf ball chases us about the place, and we are forced to burn presents in order to progress. Perhaps a reflection of the cruelty of Greg's father during his childhood. This DLC also contains newspaper clippings which reveal Cozy Cove was closed several times due to poor hygiene and kidnappings, both a result of Greg's actions as Mr. Golfy. This aligns with the escape ending, where we see Mr. Golfy has several people held hostage in his home, which he then butchers. We also see a giant golden statue of a woman. This must surely be Greg's mother, a woman who he idolized but wasn't there as he grew up at the mercy of his wicked father. The withered golf ball we see in pictures everywhere is obviously a reflection of Greg's father. We see it above the desk of the Cozy Cove golf owner's office, and also find Greg crying before it during the sad ending. It seems he eventually murdered his father, as we do find a dead body on the table of his childhood home. And so if we look at the endings once more, we can come to some new conclusions. The good ending is called such because it allows Greg to break free from his Jekyll and Hyde personality disorder and leave the murderous Mr. Golfy behind after confronting his inner demons. The sad ending, where we are captured by Mr. Golfy, shows he is in great torment and merges with Greg as he weeps before his father's portrait. In this ending, Mr. Golfy has won and Greg is devoured by his evil persona. Then, in the escape ending, we see Greg once again break free from Mr. Golfy's hold, and in doing so, gain another attempt to revisit his troubled past and overcome his demons in the good ending. As for the true ending, well, if we are to take the developer at their word, this is separate and sort of a joke ending outside of the main game world. But then again, we do see empty soda cans everywhere, and it seems the man playing video games isn't so sure his mother is really there.
Get out of my room, Mom! Can't you see I'm streaming? Mom?
Is this yet another clue as to Greg's absentee mother and the abusive nature of his father? A window into the point at which his dark side, Mr. Golfy, first took hold of him. I'll let you ponder that for yourselves. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and remember to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, and of course subscribe for more horror related content. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.